When I was a kid, I was afraid of the dark. I remember having the most vivid images and nightmares from watching scary movies or playing horror games with friends. I even started sleeping with a freaking airsoft gun in my bed at night because it made me feel a tiny bit safer knowing if anything I could shoot the monster hiding in my closet before it ate me alive. This probably isn't a unique experience. Lots of kids are afraid of the dark and of scary movies, but most of them grow out of it after a while. For me, I didn't. I remember it wasn't until I was in college that I finally stopped being terrified of being alone in the dark, and it still lingered for a few years after that. Needless to say, horror video games were not something I played, because why the hell would I? It wasn't until I was in my 30s, now more scared of things like not being able to pay rent, or getting into a car accident, or something happening to my kids, that I began to think about horror games again. I remember watching a video about someone saying how awesome the Resident Evil series was, especially the original Resident Evil 4. I saw some gameplay, made the choice that the 2005 graphics couldn't possibly be that scary, saw it was on sale for like $7, so I bit the bullet and bought it. I wasn't ready for what happened next. If you've had a history of avoiding horror games, or maybe you just have a really vivid imagination like me and never thought you'd ever play, let alone enjoy horror stuff, well, please believe me when I say I've been there. But now I want to tell you that Resident Evil 4 cured my fear of horror games. Here's how. Horror games are a bit like spicy food. People who don't like spicy food see people who do and ask, why are you eating that? Doesn't that hurt? Do you like being in pain? Doesn't that ruin the food for you? The same can be said of horror games to people who don't like horror. Do you like being scared, they ask? Don't you get nightmares? Why would you want to do that to yourself? The thing is, I love spicy food. And after beating Resident Evil 4 for the first time as the first true horror game that I'd ever done all by myself, man, I loved that experience. Now that I've actually rolled credits on a lot of wildly popular and universally praised horror games, Dead Space, Resident Evil 7 and 8, Outlast, Little Nightmares, Alien Isolation, and more, I think I understand now why people who love horror games love them so damn much. Honestly, it's just freaking exciting. Your adrenaline levels burst through the roof as you're tiptoeing past the xenomorph, or desperately trying to run away from 4 charging necromorphs on the Ichimura, or running around like a chicken without a head while Jack Baker tries to run you over with his car in the garage. It's supremely thrilling, and the best games make you feel like you're the one in the game running for your life or sneaking past a monster while it's not looking. Horror games aren't for everyone, and not everyone can access this exciting adrenaline rush. For some people, like myself growing up, these games are a bad time and leave you feeling afraid and scared, and not in a good way. Just like some people think that food is ruined when it's spicy, lots of people think being scared ruins any feeling of fun. But people can grow to like spicy food and any number of new things they didn't like before. And for me, Resident Evil 4 helped me grow to like this genre. Love it, really. Getting me hooked on these games for years to come. Speaking of, let's talk why Resident Evil 4 was such a fun experience for a scaredy cat like me, and how these games can change your mind when you least expect it. I've tried playing games from the Amnesia series, and I just can't get into them. They're too slow for me. I think at its core, the setup of these games are scarier than anything the Resident Evil series has to offer. In games like Amnesia, you have no way to fight back, only run and hide. This means that whatever scenario you're in, you're always at a disadvantage. There's no way to get the upper hand on your enemies and defeat them. Your best and only hope is to pray they ignore you and don't catch you as you sneak by. On the other hand, Resident Evil games give players enormous agency and abilities. All manner of guns, explosives, and allies are constantly given to you as you combat the brain-eating zombies shuffling towards you at every corner. It's extremely hard to find this balance, and even the Resident Evil franchise has had some major missteps. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil 5 and 6. Give a player too little agency, and they might get bored with the overwhelming power of their enemies. Or give a player too much power, and the game feels like a cheap action movie where the hero is never in any real danger anyways. But the reason why games like Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space are so universally praised is because the developers created a system where the balance of horror and action was so perfect that the pacing and story and experiences of the game all walked along the edge of a knife to allow the player to feel extreme terror while also feeling extremely confident in their ability to fight back, which isn't easy, but at least fair. That's what Resident Evil 4 did for me. And you know what else the game did I never thought horror games could do? It made me freaking laugh. A lot. I was laughing so hard I have tears in my eyes. Leon doesn't just punch guys, he freaking roundhouse kicks them to the face. He freaking suplexes them like a luchador. He makes you feel bad for the bad guys with how much he dunks on them. So many of Leon's one-liners and the voice actor's delivery were startlingly hilarious. This wasn't some run-of-the-mill dime-a-dozen tough guys with a gun. Leon was a man who could kick your ass from years of training, but had the wherewithal to throw in a bitingly clever one-liner that perfectly made fun of whatever ridiculous challenge he was faced with. For me, it was like a breath of fresh air and helped my muscles to loosen and relax as I navigated through this terrifying, unpredictable, relentless world of a horror game. Another example that comes to mind is Kiryu from the Yakuza series. We've seen 1.5 million of these nameless, boring, predictable tough guy gangster types. The guys who never stop frowning, who are always grunting. The guys who never get us that interested in their story because they're so simple, predictable, and bland. And at face value, that's who Kiryu is. Until you see him freaking dancing his heart out in a Saturday Night Fever high-collared white suit, swinging his butt, and sliding on the disco floor in front of the entire nightclub. Who is that? His emotional vulnerability and reckless abandon of any self-conscious hesitation was a truly stunning moment for me when I first played it. Now this is a character I'm interested in, I thought. The same is true for Leon Kennedy. At first glance, you think you've seen 1 million guys like him. The covert operative, secret agent, task force bro with a scowl and handy with all manner of firearms. Big deal. Those characters are flat, boring, and annoying. But Leon is goofy. At his core, he's pretty silly. Making jokes about Sadler having a senior moment, or when Salazar threatens Leon by sending his right hand bad guy to dispose of him. "Your right hand comes off?" Leon asks, swallowing a smirk. Many of his one-liners have come full circle from the not this shit again James Bond-esque secret agent to a self-aware comedian that thinks his own jokes are hilarious and doesn't care if you don't agree. There's a charm to him, a dorky charisma paired with his thick-skinned zombie-killing exterior that, well, it just makes you like the guy. There's lots to love about Resident Evil 4, but never before, and frankly never since, has a horror game made me laugh so much.
No thanks, bro. Your right hand comes off? Sadler, you're small time.
Women. I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
When I was a kid and terrified of the dark, one of my more lame attempts to not be such a scaredy cat was to make fun of whatever was frightening me, as a means to strip it of its power, which rarely worked, and if so, only for a short while. But Resident Evil 4 wants you to laugh. It wants you to desperately fight for your life against dozens of axe-throwing, chainsaw-wielding psychopaths as you bob and weave through an endless maze of brainwashed enemies fighting tooth and nail to remove your head from its shoulders. And it wants you to give a big hearty chuckle when they're abruptly called away and Leon says, "Where's everyone going? Bingo?" Most other horror games are not there to coddle you. Dead Space is perhaps the most brutally relentless game I've ever played, and I loved every minute of that for different reasons. In Dead Space, it is 1000% serious, and if you mess up, you're dead. The necromorphs destroy you, and that's it. But in Resident Evil 4, the game wants to be your friend, which is not something I thought I'd ever find in a horror game. While the baseline jump scare heavy horror games like Outlast have a never-ending mission to hurt your character and make you feel pain, Resident Evil 4 wants you to have fun, and will go to extreme lengths to allow that to happen. Everything from the inscrutable merchant who follows you around with an ever-increasing arsenal and willingness to give you every resource available to help you on your quest for a small fee. Gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger. The ridiculous bad guys who give you chance after chance to dunk on their asinine plots. A truckload of ammo right before you need it most for the big boss fight. In a way, the game becomes your co-player and gives you what you need when you need it so that you can use your own skills and resources to defeat difficult challenges while not feeling coddled. And it all leaves you with a great sense of gratitude that the game cared enough about you to make sure you were good. I never knew horror games could be like this. I thought they were all about ratcheting up the fear factor to an 11 and brutally jump scaring you at every chance they got. And there are plenty of games like this. But Resident Evil 4 combined a poignant levity and laid-back comfort into its unforgiving world, which makes you, the player, feel that despite all the terror and unpredictable challenges ahead, you'll be okay. The game will make sure of it. I would have never, ever given some of the most intense horror games out there a chance had it not been for Resident Evil 4. Honestly, I just wasn't ready, and I don't think I would have enjoyed them. Their brutal fear, their relentless difficulty, the overwhelming dread of opening a new door or seeing an elite enemy drop from the ceiling and charge you with murderous intent. And new fans of the genre would have a much harder time going from a 0 to 100. Resident Evil 4 showed me that horror games could be funny, rewarding, and exciting when you earned it. After I beat Resident Evil 4, I jumped into Resident Evil 7, which was way scarier honestly, and I loved that game so much I bought all the DLC and immediately beat that as soon as I rolled the credits. Then Resident Evil 8, which wasn't as scary but still very fun in a different way, and on and on. For me, Dead Space is the scariest horror game ever made, and I absolutely loved every second of helping Isaac get the hell off the freaking Ishimura. I made a point to play the game at night by myself in a dark room with noise-canceling headphones turned way up. Why? Because Resident Evil 4 taught me how to have fun playing horror games, and the fun to be had navigating through a tremendously difficult and terrifying world. See, Resident Evil 4 is like a Michelin star waiter. It gives you everything you want, right when you want it, before you even knew you wanted it. It's seen all there is to offer out there, and it only gives you the very best. In my opinion, it's a perfect balance of action and horror, and it gave me an incredible bedrock to base my opinions on when it came to future horror games. Knowing when jump scares aren't earned, recognizing when difficulty spikes are unfair, realizing how to know when to conserve ammo and when to use it. Resident Evil 4 does it all, consistently throughout its whole playthrough. It makes other horror games pale in comparison, because you've had the best, and now you know what the best is. I'll always be grateful to Resident Evil 4 for curing my fear of horror games. It's a whole new genre I've come to love, and it's given me so many more experiences I never ever would have had without it. It's helped me be brave enough to start watching scary movies, and I've learned how much I love classic scary movies. I say classic because that's all I can handle. None of this Exorcist or Hereditary bullshit, no thank you. But I've gotten the guts to watch Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Thing, Halloween, The Shining, and many more that have shown me an art style I'd always ran away from ever since I was a kid. Now, would I show these movies and video games to my kids? Hell no! But when they're older, I can tell them why someone like me, with a vivid imagination and a history of being scared of the dark, and prone to getting very afraid, that despite all that, I like scary movies and video games because they can be so fun and exhilarating and rewarding and smart and poignant and hilarious and just plain old fun. So thank you, Resident Evil 4. You cured my fear of horror games and allowed me to have some immensely frightening, incredibly fun experiences of horror. Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.